Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I get to ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. My guest this week is a fire captain and paramedic hailing from the great state of Arizona. Though you likely know him due to his massive following as a firefighting comedian and parody music writer and performer. He is a man with one of the most famous mustaches in all of the fire service, despite the fact that he attaches it to his face with glue. You may know him by his birth name, Brent, but you nearly certainly will know him by his internet persona. My guest this week, Firefighter Fenton. Brent, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
For sure, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk. Is it, as you've kind of adopted this Firefighter Fenton persona, has it been weird to have people kind of not know what to call you? I feel like that, because I felt myself like, what do I call him, Firefighter Fenton, or I call him Brent, or what, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. Usually people, it's just so funny because like pretty much around the station, everybody will just call me Fenton. You know,
okay.
So yeah. It's just kind of, yeah. But, you know, I answer to any and all of it. Answer to worse.
So as is the format of the show, we tend to open it up with a wheel of stupid questions, which just is a reminder that asking questions is good. If you point them at the right people, you can get some pretty smart answers. So with that, we'll bounce into that segment and see what the wheel gives us today.
All right.
Okay, it is a real wheel. It's really spinning, and we'll see what we get. Oh, this is pay attention. There's a complicated question here. If a piece of gum is 10 calories, does that include just chewing it, or if you swallow it too?
If a piece of gum is 10 calories, yeah, I would say, I don't know, man. I feel like you would swallow it because if you're, I don't know. I've swallowed plenty of pieces of gum. So
it's, I don't know. As we were coming through these stupid questions, this one came up and I went, I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I should have asked I had a nutritionist on. I should have asked her. She probably would have actually known the answer, but, I don't know. I'm going to take them as free calories, right? As long as I spit it out.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, if you spit them out, then it's zero, right?
That's what I'd like to think, right? Look at them cutting calories here.
Yeah, right.
All right, man. We'll get into the real deal. So let's start at the very beginning. Before Firefighter Fenton, the character was born. Let's talk about Brent. What is the fire service origin story? Why the fire service?
Well, the fire service started basically because my dad told me he didn't want me to be a cop. So my entire family is law enforcement. And I was actually gung ho to be a cop. And then, my dad, when I was actually, my plan was to go to college, and go into the Forest Service because I love the woods, love being out in the forest, and I wanted to do law enforcement. So I was like, I'll be like a forest ranger and be a cop in the woods. Uh-huh. And then my dad, he worked for Phoenix PD for like 26 years, and I was going on ride-alongs like every weekend whenever I could. And then he was just like, towards the end of his career, he had some pretty unfortunate things happen with his best friend was killed, one of his officers was killed, and my dad was just like, I'm not going to your funeral. I've got friends in the fire department. Go on a ride along. Go check it out. So, I went on a ride along and I was hooked from that first day, that first ride, first fire I ever went to. I was like, okay, yeah, this is it.
Yeah. So little did you know, that's probably the best advice your dad will ever give you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially based on how the climate of the fire service and law enforcement have changed in your 20 years, man. It was even easier to be a cop 20 years ago than it is now. It was really a tough career field now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He had an opportunity probably at like 5 years on to lateral over to the fire department. And he didn't do it because I mean, obviously it was way different. And he was like, honestly, being a cop then was like really, really fun. And then he said, things changed quite a bit. And so, yeah, that's one thing he said. He's like, if I would have lateraled over to the fire service, he's like, I probably would have did 30 plus years. So, yeah.
So, you talked a little bit about your first fire. I think from researching you ended up having a fire that ride along. Is that right? That first ride along. I
did. Yeah, I did. Man, you get some good. You did some good research. This is wild to even think of because especially now being a captain, one of my dad's childhood buddies was the captain. It was Ladder 24 in Phoenix, and he let me do a 24-hour ride along, and it was wild. Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Especially no I'm like 24-hour riders. Sorry. You can come and hang out, but you ain't hanging out all day and all night. But I went on this ride and it was like I always say it was the ultimate bait and switch. We had, there was shootings, car accidents. There was a stabbing. There was all this stuff. Everything was like all this exciting, crazy calls. Not one fall injury, not one person covered in feces.
Yeah, of course.
like 2:00 in the morning, they got a fire. And I remember jumping on the truck, and as we show up, it's spreading to the neighbor's house. And I remember seeing the engine guys pulling the line and just disappearing into this house full of smoke. And I was like, this is it for sure. This is what I want to do.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Do you remember your first fire you went to when you were actually on the job?
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I was actually on the job, it's kind of, I was on probation, and kind of ironically, I had to go to a meeting with some chiefs. It was for a pub ed deal. And so I was off the truck for like 2 hours, and we're sitting there, and it was like a lunch meeting. So we're at this place eating, and all of a sudden I see my engine go screaming by. And the sirens are ripping, they're screaming. I'm like, man. And one of the chiefs pulls up his phone. He was like, oh, there's a fire. So we all run out, jump in the car, haul butt behind the engine, drive to this house. It was a house that was right up on top of a hill. So we hit this lower driveway, and they had laid a line. They were all the way up at the top. And I just remember getting out, and one of the guys who was on plug that had laid the line was like, hurry up, let's go. And so we sprint up to the top of this mountain, and it is a long sweeping, we're talking probably, I don't know, the driveway is probably 1,500 feet. And it is and in that 1,500 feet, we probably gained 300 feet of elevation. So it's like hoofing it up there. And I remember just getting up there and being smoked from running up this hill. And I remember the captain's like, get your crap on, we're going in. And they had already started pulling lines and doing stuff. So I'm getting dressed out because they were running short. They were 3-man. We do 4-man staffing. So they were 3-man. And I just remember grabbing all my stuff and just taking off. And it was like, I forgot real quick how tired I was because I was so excited. It was like, it's my first fire, and it was a good one. It was by the time we got there, this place had been going a while before anybody noticed. So it was pretty well defensive, but it was an exciting time, exciting fire, and did a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So it was fun, but yeah. So,
when you decided to get into the fire service, obviously your dad gave you this advice, you do this ride along. What's the gap between when you first had your first look at a fire to like now actually getting hired, or the hiring process, going through academy and whatnot?
So it was probably about 2.5 years. So when I was like 18, that was when I did my first fire department ride along. And then I got hired on. So my department back in the day used to do what was called reserves. So it was almost like a cadet, but you got paid per call. Even though it was a career department, you were kind of an extra guy. You kind of learned along the way, and they kind of used that as a hiring pool. It was almost like a long interview process, which is kind of cool. So instead of, just a 20-minute interview, they got to actually work with you a little bit and decide and figure out whether or not there was somebody they wanted to hire or not. But I got hired as a reserve at 20, and then I got hired full time at 21. with them. So I was a reserve for about 9 months. And so, yeah, so I guess probably closer to 3 years from when I was 18, starting at 21. And yeah.
Yeah, that you're early too. That's early into the fire service. Good for you. Probably it means early retirement then too, or a whole lot of years before you get to retire.
Yeah.
So then talk me through your career trajectory then. So you're a fire captain now.
Right.
How do you guys have promoted positions that drive, or how long did you spend in each one of these positions kind of as you rose the ladder?
Yeah, so I was a firefighter for a long time. I was a firefighter for like 17 years. I took the captain's test at like 10 years on. I passed. I got number 5 on the list, and they promoted 4, so that kind of sucked. I died on that list as the bubble boy.
Yeah.
So, but I did act for quite a bit. Once you have successfully passed a captain's exam, you can act. We do have a promoted engineer position, the driving position. So you don't have to be an engineer to be a captain. You just have to successfully pass the test. So I passed the engine. I took the engineer's test, and then like a month later took the captain's test. And so I was able to pass the engineer's test, pass the captain's test. Like I said, I was at bubble position. And then I acted for a long time, but I was still a backseat firefighter. I actually went to, in 2011, I went to hazmat school as a firefighter. So I got my tech, and then, I actually took another captain's exam in 2018 and picked a bad day to have a bad day, and I failed that test. So sucked. That was a big shot to the pride, but it was probably a shot that I needed. I always say, in hindsight, looking back, it sucked when it happened, but I learned a lot, and it definitely made me a better firefighter and a better captain than I am now. But I ended up getting promoted at 17 years as a captain. And I've been in the captain position for coming up on 4 years.
So I'm always interested in this. What went into your decision to promote? Was it strictly financial, or was there some other motivations? I think that sometimes people have some pretty interesting motivations and desires as they promote.
Yeah, well, like I said, I never wanted to drive because I was always like, I don't want to be outside. I don't want to be at the pump pan. I don't want to be inside fighting fire and stuff. And I did get to drive a bit, and driving is a great spot too. But wanting to promote to the captain's position, I think the biggest thing was watching my dad in law enforcement promote to the sergeant position. And it's kind of the same thing. I kind of was on the same trajectory as him. He did 26 years, and he didn't promote to sergeant until he was around like 17 years on. So, which was kind of crazy. Just that wasn't really the plan, but we kind of got into those leadership roles around the same time in our career. And one thing that I learned from him was he had a lot of experience when he promoted. So that I think that really did. I think that really was in his favor because he'd kind of seen it all, done it all. He was a policeman's policeman, you know what I mean? Like we say, the fireman's fire chief kind of thing. He was the policeman's sergeant kind of thing. He'd done everything, done that kind of thing. And I would always watch him. He said, that one thing that you can do when you get into leadership positions is affect change. And that's one thing that I, there's a lot of power in those unofficial leadership positions when you're a senior firefighter or things like that. But there is a ceiling, obviously, and then just promoting to the rank of captain. I always liked teaching and helping people who were trying to get hired, people who would come on ride-alongs, cadets, younger people in their careers, things like that. I enjoyed doing that, and I just have seen that as a captain, from having good captains myself and having bad captains, I realized that you can really affect the trajectory of somebody's career, good or bad. And I enjoy helping people. I really do love the fire service. And it's like a family, and being the captain is almost like being the dad in a family, if you will, and I've got some younger guys on my truck. I've had younger guys work underneath me, and it's just been really cool to speak into them, not only professionally, but also personally, like we live together and we get married, we have kids, things like that. So it's to me, I just really wanted to get into that role, and it's the best way to leave it better than you found it, I feel. Mm-hmm.
So what's next? Are we going to see Chief Fenton, or is that on the on the docket or no?
Oh man, I'm going to get my acting to act as a battalion chief. I'm not sure that I want to promote in that position. If there's one thing that I have definitely learned, and I know guys that I work with, if they see this, will laugh, is the administrative portion of my job. Not my strong suit. Like as far as the paperwork and all that stuff, I literally, this is hilarious. Like 3 days ago, I just restarted for my medic and I had to get all my CEs and everything together. And I've got a bunch of CEs and half of them are crumpled up in balls and whatever that I pulled out of the bottom of my locker. And I came out and my BC, he's at my station. He's looking at it and I go, something's wrong with my filing cabinet. And he's like, what is wrong with you? I was like, this is ADHD on a table in front of you right here. That's what that is. Right?
No kidding. Right. I relate. So let's talk about that. So at what point in the career trajectory did you go to medic school?
So I went to medic school after about 2.5 years on the job. I was an EMT obviously. And then, and it was kind of, that was not my plan. I had zero desire to be a medic. I did not want to do that. And, obviously, a lot of these stories stem from my dad. My dad's like, he's like my role model, my hero. And, but when I was about 2.5 years on the job, we went to Washington, D.C. as a family. One of my dad's, like I said, his best friend was shot and killed. So they were putting him on the National Fallen Police Officers Memorial. So we went to D.C. all as a family, and because I grew up with this guy, I grew up with his son and everything too. So we all knew him. We're all very close. And my dad actually, like a couple days before the memorial, had a heart attack. And it was pretty wild. Yeah. And it was very impactful for me because I thought, oh man, my dad, this is it. Because, both my grandfathers, died of heart attack. So I'm thinking my dad's having a heart attack, my dad's going to die. So I didn't really know what was going on. I was kind of freaking out. And I remember it was firefighters from Arlington County Fire that responded. They came out and the two medics, I just remember the looks on their faces. I didn't know what was going on because I didn't know anything about EKGs or anything. I knew it wasn't good just by how my dad looked, and I could tell kind of by their nonverbal communication, this isn't good. They're looking at each other and they just started moving, and they IVs, aspirin, nitro, morphine, the whole deal. They threw him in the ambo and they took him down. And he went to the hospital, ended up having, he had 100% block in his LAD. Oof. But what was crazy was he had no heart damage. And the doctor, I remember him explaining to everybody what happened to my dad and everything. He was like, if it wasn't for the fast recognition of the paramedics, this would be a very different story. But because they recognized it immediately and started treatment right away, that's what made you have a very, a very good outcome. And so in my mind, I was like, that was super impactful to me. And I was like, man, I want to become a paramedic because one, I didn't like that feeling of not knowing what the heck was happening, and I also was like, if I can do that for somebody, if I can, potentially save somebody's dad's life, I want to do that. So I went to medic school, and that was about 2.5 years on the job, and which is wild to think, in 2026, that'll be 20 years as a medic. Wow. I'm getting old.
Sneaks up on you, huh?
It does.
So, before we get into kind of the stuff you're known for, I do want to give you the respect you deserve as a 20-year fire captain. Like, what are some things that you've learned in your career that you kind of wish you knew starting out?
Things I wish I knew starting out. Well, there's some mistakes that I've made that I would tell my younger self, hey, just keep in mind as you go through your career, just because somebody has time on the job, that doesn't always equate to experience. And as a new captain, as an acting captain, I've had I wouldn't say as a new captain, that really bit me as an acting captain. I worked with some people that, we found ourselves in some hairy situations, if you will, on some fires. And I would just expect, initiative, or that they would make wise decisions. And then, I look over and realize, oh, this guy has zero clue what he's doing. And he's literally waiting for waiting for me to tell him how to wipe his butt, kind of thing.
It is a strange thing about the fire service that where you talk about, time on equating to experience. Because for whatever reason in the fire service, it seems like people want it to be that way. When like if you worked in an office building, you wouldn't, because just because Karen's been here for 35 years doesn't mean she's the best, accountant or something. Right. But for some reason in the fire service, there seems to be this equation that says if you've been here a long time, then you are better or more experienced. Not to say that there's not a ton of people with a ton of time that are like the smartest people on the job. Yeah. But it definitely isn't like an A plus B equation, I don't think.
Yeah. And that was one thing that I just remember, as a firefighter going to trainings and I'd pay attention. I'd be taking notes. I'd be listening, it's like this job can kill you, it can, and it will, mm-hmm. If you find yourself in a bad situation. And I just remember being at trainings and one of the firefighters that was on my crew at the time was like, why are you writing things down and so into this? We're just going to do what our cap tells us to do. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, we do what our captain tells us to do, but what happens if he's not there, or we find ourselves in this position where he's doing a 360 and again, he's not there. And I got to know what he's thinking or what he's going to want and make good decisions for myself as a firefighter, or if we get separated, if we're in interior and we get separated for whatever reason, I need to know what the heck to do. I need to have my own brain and make my own right decisions, not freelance, but make right decisions, what he would want me to do. And that's one thing that I kind of carry now as a captain too, is I don't want robot firefighters that just, robot firefighters or firefighters who are incapable of making decisions. I don't want them to depend on me for I want smart firefighters who can make wise decisions that are basically an extension of me. So when they make those decisions, I can look, if somebody asks me, why did they do that? And I'll say, because that's what I would have done. They know what I want. They're smart, and I empower them to do that,
Yeah. And that's a thing that I often talk to the people that I mentor at my department about, which is you come through the academy, you get firefighter 1, firefighter 2, but that firefighter 3 is really starting to adapt, the mindset of a captain. You're not necessarily giving orders, but you should be able to know what order is coming before it comes, or be able to confer with your captain and be in agreement about what the next step is. And the better you get at that, the better firefighter you're going to be before you even think about promoting. In the same way, when you become a captain, hopefully you're thinking about, well, what's the chief going to ask me to do next? And you can kind of anticipate that. And that's really the next step. But I think that it's those things that eventually drive people to promote. Once you feel like you have all the decision makings in order, then you're ready to maybe take the next step.
For sure. Yeah. And sometimes you find yourself, like you said that, and then sometimes you also find yourself where you're looking around at who else is testing. And you're like, I got to test.
I've heard that. I've heard that's one of the things that, I can't be working for that person. But
that's a real thing too. Yeah. I'm not I feel like I could do better than that guy. I definitely don't want to work for that guy. I'm going to take this because I got to take care of myself.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, let's get into the history of the character then. So where does the Firefighter Fenton come from?
Man, that all happened by accident. Back in 2011, my department does a banquet every year. It's like an awards banquet. They give out, Firefighter of the Year, Chief of the Year, all the different, paramedic, EMT, all these different awards and different things. And it's a fundraiser. It's a charity fundraiser for our firefighters' charities. And the night, it could get a little stale. It could get a little boring when it kind of in its infancy. It was just lots of talking and very little hanging out. And it was just kind of like, okay, let's go, let's get this thing going. And I was like, I could do something like some comedic relief. I've always enjoyed comedy. I've heard, for a long time, as a firefighter or even as a kid, not to sound like a tool, but people would be like, you should be a comedian or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or you missed your calling, and I would hear that a lot and be like, did I miss my calling? So I started to started to brainstorm ideas of what I could do as like a comedic relief. And honestly, dude, it was the first video I ever made was My Knee Hurts Now. And it was a song parody to I Need You Now by Lady Antebellum. That song was really popular when me and my partner were coming back. We were coming back from a call on the rescue, and it was literally this lady had knee pain that she'd had for weeks and just decided, 1:15 in the morning is the time to call now. Nothing changes now. And can you drive yourself? No, I can't drive myself. Okay, we'll take you. Whatever. And that song came on the radio when we were driving back from the station, and I just was like, I looked at my partner and I was like, it's 1:15, call to 911 because my knee hurts now. And we both started laughing, and I was like, I'm going to make a video. Mm-hmm. So I made the video. I played it in the banquet, and it blew up, and I had zero anticipation that it was going to do that. I put it on YouTube for the guys who couldn't make it to the banquet because they were on shift. The character actually has a name. It's kind of evolved from, now it's just Firefighter Fenton's character. But when it started, it was Captain Rocalati. And that was because my captain at the time, his last name was Salati. And he had a big old mustache, and he didn't have he's from New Jersey, and he doesn't have really an accent unless he gets mad, then it comes out. And so he'd be like, knock it off, this whole thing. And he always yell at us. And so I was making fun of him, just kind of like, poking at him with this character. And then over time, the mustache has evolved, and it just has become the Firefighter Fenton character. So.
What does he think of it? What does he make of it after, especially as big as it's gotten now, being an impression of him?
Oh, he laughs. He thinks it's hilarious. He's just like, there's a lot of people that come up, hey, I got a buddy and he says that he knows you and this is him and this is you. And I'm like, no, it's not your buddy. It's this guy.
Yeah. So did you, this is a very stupid question, but I was thinking about this when I was thinking about talking to you. Did you try like alternative mustaches? Did you have like a mustache, show and tell, or whatever it would be?
Honestly, so the first mustache I had, I literally went to there was like this costume shop in downtown Phoenix. I went and found this ridiculous big mustache, and that's actually the mustache I'm wearing in My Knee Hurts Now. And that was in the first like 2 or 3 music videos that I made was that mustache. And then honestly, I had kids and it disappeared. My son somehow got a hold of it. I have one video where there was one other one that was just weird looking, and I was like, I don't like this. And then I just started searching, and I found the fit. And then, that was
Cinderella's shoe. It's Cinderella's shoe, right?
Exactly.
So then this is the follow-up question, that even maybe dumber question. Do you have like boxes of them? What if the vendor stops making them? If this whole character is predicated on this mustache, God forbid you don't have the mustache anymore.
So I do have an embarrassing amount of mustaches, in the thousands.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So fire department coffee, we were going to sell them. And so we got in contact. The manufacturer of these mustaches is in Lithuania, of all places. Super random. We were able to get in contact with them, and through broken English emails and this and that, we were able to send them artwork and the whole deal. And they packaged the Firefighter Fenton mustache. It's got my face on it. It has the mustache on the packaging. So when you take the mustache off, there's a picture of my face with the mustache still there. And it has like Firefighter Fenton mustache and the whole deal. And it has like, FDC's logo on it and everything. And we ordered a lot, thousands of them. And then we were going to sell them, and we sold them. We sold them for one day, and we sold a decent amount. But then the legal and the whole deal was like, hey, there is adhesive on those. We got to worry about there being allergic reactions and things like that. And
oh my gosh.
We tried to see if the company in Lithuania would extend their this is all legal crap, but extend their insurance stuff on there, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And so basically what it came down to was to add that insurance to our thing. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze. It ended up being costing more than it would have been.
Oh my gosh, what a hilarious bureaucracy.
So so now I've got cases of mustache.
Well, at least you'll know you'll never run out. So that's good.
Yeah. And if I do, by that time, maybe I'll actually be able to grow a real one.
Have you tried?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever tried to actually do it for real?
Well, not ever since the Firefighter Fenton thing started. I haven't, just because it won't stick if I have hair.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
But no, I have, like, whenever we've had babies and stuff like that, and I've taken a month off and not shaved, I'll get a beard. I'll usually start it with a beard, because if I just try and grow it without that, it's very awkward. But it's not terrible, but it's nothing, like, my mustache isn't bad, but it's nothing compared to the Fenton character.
Yeah, and you know why? If you have thousands of them, you might as well just roll with it.
Right.
So prior to you making this video, had you done any, like, video or music production at all?
Just kind of like in high school growing up, things like that. I'd done like a lot of my projects. Like the first video I ever made, I was in an American Arizona government class my senior year, and we had to do some kind of presentation. And I just remember asking my teacher, I was like, can I just make a video instead of doing a presentation? Can I just make a video that, like, plays? I mean, we're talking, like, it was all the stuff from, like, taxation with that representation and quartering soldiers and all these different things. And she's like, yeah. So me and my buddies, we made a video. We made, like, a cop spoof and, like, all this stuff. And it was actually hilarious. And she kept it and was like, I'm going to show this from here on out. This is too funny. And we made the video. It was, like, the first funny one that, like, everybody, I remember when we played it in my class, like, the whole class was dying laughing. And, you know, I got an A on it, and I do still have it. Yeah.
Oh man. When is that getting released?
I got to make it. It's on VHS. I got to make it digital.
So you kind of have a unique experience, I think, coming into, like, the creation world, where, like, your first thing you ever made was, like, super popular.
Yeah.
What was it like to not, you know, have a traditional, you know, slow climb into some level of, you know, notoriety? Did you feel a lot of pressure to have the follow-up video, like, carry the torch?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely, dude, it was wild. So, like, when I first started, I didn't really understand social media at all. You know, I didn't know what social media could become. I didn't realize that. I mean, it was like, I think YouTube started in 2006 or something like that. And I got my YouTube channel in December of 2006. So, like, wow. I don't think anybody really knew what YouTube could become, like, that you could make money off of it and all these things. Mm-hmm. I was just like, I just like making people laugh. And, I put it out there, like I said, overnight. I mean, I just remember my wife and I, we were at this banquet. There was probably 300 people at the banquet, and there's people from my department, there's people from other departments and doctors and whatever. It's like a fancy thing. It's a pretty big deal. Like, we still do it today, and there's about 500 people that come to it. They do it every year. And, but I put this thing on, and it was at that point when we first released it, it was very nerve wracking, because I'm like, I'm about to put this out there, you know, and, like, hopefully it's well received, you know. Was a very vulnerable feeling. And I was like, I don't think this is funny, because I had watched it hundreds of times editing it. Like, at one point I knew it was funny, but then I was like, I don't think this is funny, and put it out there, and the place erupted, and I was like, holy cow. And then it just, like I said, people started sharing it from the YouTube, and I woke up the next morning and I had gained thousands of subscribers. Like, I mean, my most viewed video on my YouTube channel before that was probably maybe 100 views. I don't even think it was that. And my subscribers were like my family and friends, like people who actually knew me. And then thousands of subscribers. The video was well on its way to 1 million views, and it was just like, holy cow. And there was drama with the whole thing. The video was up. I had to take it down. I had to put it up. I had to take it down. There was unions involved, and I mean, dude, all kinds of things, fire chiefs involved, the whole deal. There was rumors going around that I got fired, I got in trouble. None of it was true. I didn't get in any trouble. I never was fired, not even close to being fired. My fire chief at the time loved it, whatever. But yes, to answer your question, I definitely felt the pressure to put out another video, like an answering, you know, to you know, I raised the bar here, I got to keep going. And the next year, you know, I went, like, you know, it's like radio silence. I didn't make another video for another year because there was the banquet. So I gained all this momentum, and then it just stalled out. And then the next year I put out I'm Salty and I Know It. And that one went again. And I was like, I did it. And so I was just feeling like all this pressure. And it took me like, I did that for like 7 years, like one video a year for 7 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 2018 that I was like, you know, I tried to be consistent, and I have been like the month of December in 2018, I put out one piece of content every single day just to see what happened. And my Instagram, I think when I started in there at that point was like 300 followers or something like that. And I gained like 3,000, you know, in 1 month. And I was like, oh, wow. And I just kind of kept going, and it's kind of turned. I've learned now that you can't keep chasing that. And I think what keeps me honest, my wife's very good at that, is I think they're all funny. So that keeps me honest. Like I don't, not that I don't try and produce funny content for the audience, but like I don't measure my, you know, success or whatever, or if something's funny based on if it's well received by like I said, to me, if I think it's funny, I'm going to put it out. And I'm also realistic that I know that they're not all going to hit. They're not all, you know, some are going to hit, some are going to miss, but as long as I think they're funny, then that's a good place to be.
Have you ever had one that you were like, this is going to crush, and then it comes out and like doesn't land the way you thought it was?
Yeah.
Or is or you're just like, this is going to take me to the next level, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, a very dismal amount of traction?
Oh yeah. Or I do ones where it's like, this is amazing. Like some of my favorite ones don't have that many views. And a lot of it's my favorite because of the artistic portion of it. And that's one thing I've learned is a lot of the audience, they don't care about the artistic factor of it. They I mean, I still love it because, I mean, to me, this is my passion. I love comedy and video and doing that kind of stuff. So I love music. And so I love to, like, I put a lot of time into writing, like, you know, engaging, thoughtful, smart lyrics, producing it well. So it's not cheesy, like actual good singing, or at least I think it's good. It's probably not, but you know, like trying to make it good singing, good production value, put it out. And I've definitely had a few where I was like, this, people just don't appreciate how much time I put into this. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is it's more like I put a lot of time into this one, and I think this is so funny. And then it just kind of doesn't do bad, but it definitely doesn't do what I thought it was going to. It just kind of, you know.
How do you manage all of that? Like, just from my small channel in relative scale, like the amount of time it takes to manage all that, I just can't even, and I'm not even doing full blown like video production like you are. I'm just recording a podcast like this, but I can't fathom how you balance all these things.
A lot of trial and error, a lot of getting it wrong for a lot of years, burning the candle at both ends. And yeah, but no, I've definitely, I should be more organized than I am, but I've definitely, like I said, I talked about that before with my administrative skills, not there, but no, for me, really, it's gotten increasingly harder because I also have 4 kids, and, you know, so I'm like, with work, 4 kids, and then we homeschool also. So
oh wow,
it's just,
you're in the weeds.
There's a lot that goes on, but it's just intentionality, carving out time in the schedule to be like, all right, I'm gonna film this, or I'm gonna do that. And my posting schedule isn't as frequent as I'd like, but for me, you know, my family takes priority. I got to make sure that they're all good before I, you know, do everything else.
How has your, like, this character affected your fire service career at all? Like, has it been well received inside the firehouse, or was there any, you know, problems along the way?
You know what? Yeah, it has been very well received. I've been very pleasantly, not necessarily surprised. Pleasantly surprised and happy with how it's been received. You know, the guys that I work with love it. It really, like, it put our department on the map, which is kind of crazy. Like, I didn't anticipate that. Nobody anticipated that. And I mean, I've been on wildfires, you know, and other guys that I work with been on wildfires all over the country, and they see like Daisy Mountain. They're like, that's where Fenton works. And guys are like, yeah, I work with him. Or, you know, I've had guys in my crew, yeah, he's my captain, or he's at my station or whatever. And it's just been crazy. I've had a few naysayers, or just people who aren't fans. I've gone to, it's fun to like run into people at trainings. You know, it truly is like a Clark Kent thing with the mustache. I didn't realize that, you know, but like guys won't recognize me, and they'll see my shirt and they'll be like, no freaking way. And they're like, I thought that mustache was real, you know? And, you know, and a lot of times I'll wear glasses and a hat, you know, so it's just different. But no, I've gone to, like, when I was trying to promote to captain, I went to this company officer leadership symposium. And it was like a 3-day class in a city nearby. And they had a section on there about social media in the fire service. And what was hilarious was the instructor of the class didn't recognize me. You know, my name was on his roster, but just kind of whatever. And he played one of my videos right before that segment about social media in the fire service. He played I'm Salty and I Know It. And people were laughing, and I'm sitting there like, and my buddy's sitting next to me. He's cracking up laughing. I'm like, oh, this is embarrassing, you know, and just sitting there. And then it's all these guys that were either aspiring captains or already captains. And the guy asked the question, what do you think of this video? Do you think it's professional, or do you think it's unprofessional and has no place in the fire service? And it was far and wide. Most everybody thought it was great. Nobody really said it was like professional, because it's not, but, but it's funny. But they're like, well, I don't necessarily think it's like professional, but it's also not bad. We think it's funny. We deserve to laugh, this whole thing, da, da, da. And then this other guy was like, I think it has no place in the fire service. Absolute embarrassment. We're professionals, this and that, blah, 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 blah. And then another guy said, well, I don't think a lot of people know, but he's like, this guy actually lost his job. This whole thing. He's saying this in the class, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, so I raised my hand. And the guy's like, yeah. And I said, coming from the person who made this video, and the whole room's like, you know, and they all look, and I was like, how you doing, morons, you know? And everybody kind of started laughing, like, oh, and even the instructor was like, holy cow, I didn't realize. He's like, yeah, they're like, walk us through your, you know, your journey of this whole thing. And I told him, I was like, look, you know, just like we said, I'm like, we deserve a space to laugh. I've kept these videos professional in terms of like, I don't name anybody. You don't know the department. You don't, I gave a thumbs up. Did that pop up on your screen too? Yeah. So, but like, I didn't name anybody, you know, this whole thing, whatever. You know, I didn't, it's, and they're always clean. I don't cuss in them, you know, and that's on purpose. You know, I want my kids to be able to watch my content too. And I want guys, kids and families to be able to watch it. But yeah, anyway, and everybody kind of laughed, but there's been some chiefs locally, guys that I know that are like, hey, I love you. I hate your content. I was like, hey, well, I respect that, you know?
At least they're forthcoming with it, I guess.
Yeah.
What does your wife think of kind of this niche fame? Like, it's kind of strange, right? Because in some community, you're very well known, right? You go to FDIC or something, and you're probably like signing autographs. And then you go to just about anywhere else in the world, and you can just be anonymous. What does she make of it?
Yeah, she's definitely like, what the heck? How did any of this happen? This is so weird. And what was crazy was, so at the time, she was an ER nurse, and she's getting recognized more than me because I'm wearing a fake mustache. Yeah. So literally, fire crews would come in and bring patients to her, and they're like, you should hear her sing. And she's like, oh, and my wife's like, she's naturally an introvert. So, yeah, she's just like, I can't believe this is our life. This is crazy how this has all happened. She enjoys it. She thinks it's funny. She's the one that keeps me honest for sure, you know, and is definitely like, you know, if I ever, you know, get down like, oh, you know, this isn't funny, this and that. She's like, you're wearing a fake mustache, making a video on the internet, making people laugh. Like, don't make it any more than it is. That's like, yeah, it's true. But she's great. She's very supportive. She doesn't necessarily enjoy being in the videos as much because she does get recognized, and because she is introverted. But no, she loves it. And it's like you said, it's weird. It's weird because, like you said, go to FDIC, and she's been there with me before. And overwhelming, like overwhelming. People recognize it, and I get recognized a lot there even without it, just because I have a fair amount of videos with it. But it's the more videos that I've made without the mustache, even kind of in the regular run of the mill. Just, I mean, we went to the airport, I don't know, back in like 2021. The mask thing was still going on, and we were with our like our kids. It was like 5 a.m. We're getting off the SkyTrain in Phoenix, and this guy goes, "Fenton?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" He's like, "Love your Instagram." I was like, "Hey, thanks, man." Just weird, like recognized there. We've been out in the middle of nowhere in northern Arizona, like hiking this waterfall trail, and this guy walked by and he's staring at me as I go by. I was like, that was weird. And we get probably 300 yards from the guy, and I hear, "Hey," from behind him. We look back. I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you Fenton?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Stay right there, I'm coming up." And this dude came up and randomly in the middle of nowhere took a picture of the guy. So it's weird. It's cool. It's always cool. It's always cool. But it's like, how did this happen?
Yeah. Have you ever had it come to head where you are recognized while you're at work? Like you go to a call and your patient's like, "Wait, what the heck?"
Oh yeah. I've definitely been recognized on calls, at the grocery store. Like I tell a story too. Like I was precepting a medic student, and we get this guy is having to stem me. He's got elevation in every lead. Walk in and with the medic student, I'm like, okay, this is legit. Here we go. And one of the medics from the crew, it's another city we were running with, was like, dude, this is Fenton. He's like, and he literally pulls out his phone, and because one of the guys in the truck's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he pulls out his phone, he starts playing I'm Salty and I Know It right in front of this guy I'm like, brother, not the time. Like, we got
time and place. Time and place.
Yeah. So,
amazing. So as we kind of look to wrap up here again, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, where they can see the content? I know you have a big partnership with Fire Department Coffees. You can talk about that too. So to see any of my social media content, it's on all the platforms, just at Firefighter Fenton. Unless it's X, then it's at Firefighter Fent, because they don't allow it long. I don't know. And I can pay to make my name longer, but I'm good. Yeah. Weird.
But YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, for now. It was gone. Now it's back. So, and then, and I'm also with Fire Department Coffee, so you can see a lot of there's additional content there with Fire Department Coffee, and Fire Department Coffee's social media handles, same thing. It's at Fire Department Coffee, and it's DEPT Coffee. So, but yeah, we're on all the platforms. So you'll see me, you'll see Jason, you'll see, everybody else with Fire Department Coffee out there, Natalie, Josh, everybody. So Randy, but Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, get to know you a little bit more, actually see a little bit behind the mustache, Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.